Hello and welcome to the new podcast slash new show for Into the Void Piece of Paradox, where we dive into the real stories behind the artists that are shaping the modern scene. If you want to be a part of the ITV movement, visit the Into the Void website where you can, inquire about this podcast right here, inquire about interviews, reviews, even, donate and, buy some merch on the website that is built for the artist by and grown by the artist. So I kind of want to get into this because Caleb here has been like one of my first major supporters for ITV since this really started. And honestly, to have you on this show is really cool because I feel like a lot has happened since the first album and, going into 25, I think for a lot of us, things have changed. So if you want to introduce yourself to the audience now.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Caleb. I go by Caleb, just Caleb. I have a band called Aim High, like pop punk, alternative, hardcore, in that general soundscape, however you want to label it. And yeah, we've been a band since 2019, and yeah, I want to say first off, thank you, Sammy, for having me on here. Definitely appreciate your time and everything like that. It's really super cool to see what you've been growing with Into the Void and everything like that. So it's super awesome to see it get taken off the ground and everything like that. So yeah, thank you for having me on here.
No, of course. Um, so for you, how would you define your band's sound versus, early stuff that you were working on previously, whether it's, compositional or production shifts, that would point out this point of growth for yourself as an artist?
Yeah, writing the music and everything like that. Pretty much, I have like the same uh process. Like I will produce most of the music like inside a DAW. Take that, I will put it in a program called Guitar Pro, and put it into MIDI, and then kind of just like grow the songs from there as organically as possible. And then once all the parts are done for all uh intents and purposes and whatnot, give them to the band members, and we'll track them. And yeah, that's pretty much how it's been from the beginning of the band. I would definitely say, in regards to like composition wise, yeah, comparatively to the original material or like our first material, it definitely still stays within the the soundscape that we were originally doing, but also at the same time, like within that sentiment, from the inception of the band, we put out our two debut EPs at the same time, which is kind of I guess not average or whatever, for the debut EPs or whatever, but it was a concept behind it. Like one of the EPs was a little bit more um you know Midwest emo core pop punk type stuff, and then the other EP was more post hardcore, diving into the harder soundscape, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, from our debut album after that, we made sure to include everything from that soundscape. And even with this new iteration of music upcoming, we definitely haven't like ventured off far in regards to the fact that it is a large soundscape, anywhere from
Mhm.
straight, like easy core songs and pop punk songs to things that are heavier, that may not be as expected to be on a project with something like that. But it's, yeah, very much something that I feel like is organically our style. Now, when it comes to trying to, yeah, describe that to people who maybe haven't heard our music, it's a little bit, a little bit difficult. But yeah, soundscapes and being able to, organically make the music that I and we've been influenced by, whether it be on one side of the spectrum or the other side of the spectrum, or completely in between and everywhere in that spectrum, to organically do that and have that reflect in our music.
No, I think honestly that it's pretty cool because I feel like ever since you guys have started, you guys have kind of been like this kind of it's you can't really paint your sound with a broad brush because you dive into a lot of these different categories within, while still kind of maintaining that classic heavy sound that you guys have kind of always brought to the table. Um, in what ways do you feel you have nudged the genre in a different direction with your sound?
Well, um, again, like for Aim High, what I try to do whenever I start to write the songs, and
Hmm.
while we're working on them, while we're in the studio with them, from point A to point B. And I hate to keep using the word organic over and over again, but it kind of, it's very much a descriptor. Yeah, I just try to organically take my influences and the influences of the bands to be able to have that be represented in the music that we make. So I definitely don't want to, uh, uh, put out any sentiment of like any kind of, yeah, sentiment that we are doing anything that maybe hasn't already been done by the people and the bands that have, organically and intrinsically influenced me growing up and influenced the rest of the band growing up. We take all of those and, yeah, make music around that. So while I do think that, uh, we are a band, we are definitely, unique in regards to what we do and stuff like that. In regards to pushing a specific genre or anything like that, because of the fact that organically our music does touch on a lot of different pieces of the scene or the sound spectrum or whatever have you. I don't like to, claim that, we're necessarily pushing a specific single genre or anything like that. We're just making music as organically as possible and, trying to do that. If, people want to say that, we are pushing boundaries or whatever, that's super cool. And, we'll definitely take that compliment. But we definitely want to also, give props and respects where they're due, and all of the bands that have come before us that have inspired us and that have, yeah, intrinsically been, influences to us. That is where we like to give, the credit.
Um, um, Growing up in these kind of, different types of settings, how much has that shaped your music?
Cool. Well, so I was born and raised in Columbia, South Carolina, but yeah, me personally, I've grown up in, the South, pretty much my entire life.
How
Again,
much
most,
would you say like the South has shaped your sound?
yeah, I mean, from, everything from, being in Columbia, which is not a big town. It's also not the smallest town. We have Fort Jackson here. We have University of South Carolina, but it's also, we're not like a Charlotte or an Atlanta or any place that, would be nationally considered like, oh, that's a music hub.
Right.
So yeah, like growing up mostly in Columbia, you know, um, experiencing the scene is, was extremely cool in my eyes, especially like growing up as an adolescent and teen, not just, from uh different, influences and stuff like that, but the scene that we have around here locally. The OG New Brooklyn Tavern now is like, extremely known venue and whatnot. So being able to experience and live that growth is, super cool to see. There's a lot. more artists and bands from the general Carolinas,
Mhm.
finding success in the soundscape of music, like alternative music. At one point, in at least South Carolina, there's specific things that South Carolina was known for. Obviously, Hootie and the Blowfish, like adult alternative type stuff, which we don't necessarily do. Obviously, that's kind of like a different, genre, but that,
Yeah.
is definitely one that was extremely um, taken in and embraced by Columbia. So, like adult alternative, obviously, living in the South Country is a huge one, and then straight hardcore. Those three genres were pretty much like the reigning three genres of the South Carolina area. So trying to, yeah, come up as a band that doesn't really lie within any of those genres or subgenres. Um, was definitely a challenge, but we also weren't the only ones to do it. And having places to be able to, get opportunities and to be able to grow and everything like that locally, such as New Brooklyn Tavern, Art Bar, Uncle Fester's, a bunch of just like venues around here, like the scene and everything like that. It's been extremely cool to see, to witness, to live, and everything like that. And that's also a very important part of what shaped us. It's also why our debut album, Local Band Forever, if you look closely into the album artwork, every letter of Local Band Forever on the inside of the letter has like a little Easter egg that has
Mhm.
something to do with either Columbia or with South Carolina. Shout out to Mike Cortada. He's the one that did that design. He is extremely nice with it. He does designs for Ice Nine Kills. He did their one of their comic books. He's an extremely awesome illustrator and designer. So shout out Mike. Um, but yeah, we definitely love South Carolina for what it is. Obviously love hate relationship and stuff like that, being in like
Yeah.
a red state in the South and whatnot. But there's always good things happening whenever people put in effort and try. And yeah, that's been happening a lot lately, and you can definitely tell, and people that have lived around here for a while can definitely tell, um, that there are a lot more bands and artists in the scene that are alternative or wouldn't necessarily fit within those, three main genres that are embraced by the area, which is extremely cool to see because,
Mhm.
obviously more diversity with music and things like that, the better a scene can grow and yeah, all of that. So it has come with its challenges, definitely don't get me wrong. But I do love, Columbia, and we love living in the South. Yeah.
No, I think, a lot of those challenges and that grit, from like, being in the South, I think that it comes through in a lot of bands such as yourselves and even other bands that are kind of from that area. It's a very different atmosphere than when you look at, places like New England or places like New York or California, where their sound is, I don't want to say it's more polished, but, we kind of expect certain kind of things from those different kind of, you know, categories, right? So
Yeah.
when we look at, different sounds like from the South, I think there is a different kind of grittiness and honestness that comes from that sound. And I think we need a lot more of that, to kind of break down the barriers that, that is kind of very much narrow-minded in terms of how we see alternative or how we see hardcore, or how we see metal. And I think a lot of times you guys are kind of breaking those boundaries. Kind
Yeah.
of getting into another question, how do you think hybrid approaches have encouraged more bands to be more open in the scene, to adopt more, whether it's melodies or, genre melding strategies? And what bands have inspired you to pursue this kind of unique touch point in your sound?
Okay, so just to make sure I'm getting I'm tracking with the question, you're saying in regards to like blending of genres and like mixing of genres.
Yeah.
Um, Can you repeat the question?
Oh, I was saying like, how has, being able to have these genre melding strategies encouraged more bands like yourself to be more open, and what bands have inspired you to pursue that kind of unique aspect to your music?
Okay, I'm getting you now. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's a great thing for a, youth right now, for a kid to be able to discover a band, and maybe they like a specific genre that they already know of, and they have heard of another genre but they don't listen to it as frequently, and they discover an artist that touches on multiple genres, and then they have a new favorite artists, new they open their mind to different sounds and stuff like that. And I feel like that's always a super positive thing. As more bands and acts come out, the more that people are open-minded to the music, making sure that it's substantial and everything like that. Yeah, being open-minded to enjoying different genres of substance, I think that it's a beautiful thing. In the second part of the question, like for bands that have done this in the past that very much like have inspired me and have inspired the band. Um, geez, going, I could talk on this for a while, but I'll try to keep it short. Going all the way back to going all the way back to like for me personally, I remember, waking up late middle school, early high school, stuff like that, before school, turning on the TV. We would, don't tell anybody, we would steal cable from the neighbors or whatever. And they had Fuse TV, and what MTV was supposed to be, but like for alternative music. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember. Yeah. And so I would turn that on every morning, and I remember just like seeing different alternative bands come on. Like for example, um, I would see the Chelsea Smile by Bring Me the Horizon music video every morning, and I would think like, wow, them mixing, like pretty much like deathcore and like metalcore and things like that, but also experimenting with like electronics and everything like that, being something that I can as a kid turn my TV on and like see as like a mainstream thing. Like that was not only super cool to see, but also as it's not like I was expecting to be a musician or in a band or anything like that back then. But in hindsight, it also very much inspired me to be able to want and think that I could actually do and succeed in blending genres and stuff like that. Same thing with bands like A Day to Remember mixing pop punk with hardcore. Um, Bands like 4 Year Strong and the Wonder Years mixing or obviously a little bit more of their older stuff, mixing synths and things like that into pop punk and easycore and everything like that. Super cool to see, and everything from that to the other side of the spectrum, to see like heavier bands do stripped down versions of their own songs and stuff like that. So I could go down a list of bands that and artists that mix genres and stuff like that that have influenced me since I was a kid. But I could go on for all day.
Now, I like that you kind of touched on that because there's a lot of myriad of influences that you kind of mentioned as, what has, produced your sound. Um, in looking at that, you do have like some purists that feel like, oh, there shouldn't be any blending of the genres. It should just be this way. And with you, has that ever, intimidated you to be able to have that authenticity within your sound? Has that ever, intimidated you in a way that it felt like, okay, maybe, we're stepping on some toes here or whatever? Because you do want, all your music to be enjoyed by everybody, but at the same time, that's not always the case.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to a couple different points. One, the reason that I make this music, the reason that I've always made this music from the inception of the band, is because I'm passionate about music and it is an
Mm.
outlet for me to express myself, an outlet for my band to express ourselves. So um, it's not like we make music for other people. The music, we're making for us. We obviously want and appreciate, what I'm saying, all of fans, everything like that. But the intention behind this isn't to have every single person in the world find us and blow up and all of that. Like that would be cool, all that
Right.
ancillary stuff. But we're like I write this music for me. So I'm definitely not going to be intimidated by or even kind of care about, what other people's thoughts and opinions on that are. At the same time, respect the opinions of, the people you want to call purists or whatever who think that maybe genres shouldn't be blended. That is an opinion. And while I might not share that opinion, I respect anybody who has the self-awareness to think about music and to like look inward in regards to music. I would definitely encourage those people to maybe try to continue that path of open-mindedness to explore and understand different, genre blendings and stuff like that. But also you can't, hate on those people. There's no rules in regards to how somebody enjoys music or how you're supposed to consume music or anything like that. And yeah, we've personally experienced, comments and stuff like that. Oh, I wish you would do this, or oh, I wish you would do that. And that's the thing. The intention behind it, you can tell, is like they're trying to, like from the inside, whether or not they're actually expressing that online, they're saying, "Oh, we're listening to your stuff. We like it in some way, shape, or form, but wish it would sound like this." The intention behind that is like they're still like, very much like listening and like have an opinion on it. And I've always been one to encourage people to be able to share their opinions. That's one of the cool things about, being able to make music in America, is that you can, do and say what you want. And yeah, if, we have people that are, supporting that and that understand, that are, locked in and on, get what we're doing, that's awesome. That's really, really, really cool. And we definitely want that, but we're also not going to be like, upset or bothered or aggravated, and definitely aren't going to change anything that I'm or that we're doing because of the opinions of other people or anything like that. This is very much for us, and whenever I write anything, it's because it's an expression of myself and what I'm trying to do, what I'm going through, different things like that. Every same pretty much with every musician who is intrinsically in it.
Um, for you as a person, I know we dove into like different artists and stuff like that that have basically inspired you to want to pursue music. But for you as a person, or is there anything outside of music that you do that inspires your sound?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that culture in general is like super important and often times spill over into different things. So for example, I've skated, like skateboarded pretty much my entire life. Skate culture, punk music, skate culture, rap music goes literally hand in hand. Um, the upbringing of, the 70s, 80s, 90s surf and skate culture and everything like that is extremely influential on, all that music is extremely influential to that. So that's, one thing that I personally can relate to, and that, in regards to things that aren't necessarily music, but can, tie in and, organically and intrinsically like loop back into music, would, yeah, be the, cultures that I have, grown up on and stuff like that. And, on the other hand of that, like I did mention skate culture and stuff like that, like in the black community, obviously, we invented hip hop, and rap. And so that's also a lot of people will ask, like, oh, not that many people try to incorporate like rap into songs that are mainly like pop punk or whatever, have you. Um, growing up, like that's a part of my culture and it's something that like has shaped me intrinsically and organically. And so yeah, I'm gonna include that in the things that I make. Um, so yeah, it kind of just, yeah, very much ties into culture, to upbringing, to all of that, and just trying to remain myself while also being able to, yeah, use this platform that I'm so very blessed to have, to express that in the most organic and authentic way possible.
No, I think honestly that is pretty cool because I mean it when even if you look at the demographics of how today's society works, I think there is a very strong how do I put it? I want to put this in a way that still keeps things kind of low key without stepping on anybody's toes, but there is a very there's a very I want to say whitewashing when it comes to cultural identity right now that is kind of going on right now where, you know, I am liking that people are stepping forward with, different cultural backgrounds, different, societal trends and stuff like that, and making that and taking their voices and being representative of that. Because whether you look at, the Black community, the Asian community, the Spanish community, different kinds of, things or faucets that make up America, I think that's very important, especially within the rock genre, to voice those things because not everything is just narrow-mindedly one way. And I like that your band is basically going through and being brave enough to still be able to do that, even within, the current conditions of everything that's going on right now. Um, and I think that is pretty cool that, you are staying organic and authentic to your sound regardless of that.
Yeah, I mean that's very much appreciated, and I definitely agree. I don't feel like it's necessarily a very much new issue. I think
Right.
that maybe just more people are kind of like hearing about it or whatever. But even
Hmm.
since Elvis and stuff like that, the black community has definitely had a lot of uh things taken from us and appropriated into other packaging by white people and sold to white people and stuff like that. So that's been going on for a while, and the black community has very much like we've been resilient through that and have
Hmm.
shown that like through, and this is just speaking for me now, not obviously the entire band, but yeah, we've been resilient through that and have shown through our talents and through just straight determination and resilience and also substantiality that you can take something, an idea or whatever of ours and do it how you want to. But at the end of the day, the product is going to show that, we're always coming up with more ideas. We're always extremely, innovative, and the substantiality of the products coming out that have had success and everything like that. I think that that's like a very important thing to, take into consideration in this conversation. On like on the other hand, like yes, we have had a bunch of things appropriated and whitewashed and everything like that, but through that, you know time and whatnot, and us being resilient and everything like that, now in the year 2025, you're starting to see a bunch more, person of color, black led, completely black, bands and artists and stuff like that in the alternative scene doing really large things. Kenny Hoopla going crazy, Meet Me at the Altar going crazy. I can, sit here list all day. Wilmette, there's so many bands, that have representation of people of color. Um, LGBTQ community inclusion, all of that stuff. So to, at the end of the day, yeah, there's a group of people that are going to always see something from a different culture or from a different community or whatever, and yeah, pretty much try to steal it, appropriate it, or whatever, and package it as their own. But and this is just my opinion. At the end of the day, real people are going to know and see and feel, what's real and what's not. And you can, only repackage and repurpose something into a different or into a, I guess, a foreign community, and be able to retain the realness from the and authenticity from the actual communities that these things came from. So yeah, I do think that one, it's something that has been an issue for a very long time now, but also I think it's extremely cool to see a bunch of people that you know instead of dealing with those problems and just being like, oh, we got to deal with it and, move on and do another idea and stuff like that, are actually being, seen, being heard, and reaching success in today's music. So that, yeah, that's extremely cool to see, I think.
No, I think so too. And being authentic and being real is something that can't be replicated. And I think the threatening issue now with music entering, AI entering music is it's a scary concept when you look at, whole bands being, conceptualized by AI, whether it's using other people's voices or other people's likenesses to develop this kind of thing. While some people feel like, it's music, moving in a different direction, I think, an actual artist and, their music cannot be replicated by a computer. It's just, you can't replicate emotion. You can't replicate, heartfelt lyrics that are coming from an actual person versus a computer that is compiling different types of information to kind of, release this kind of thing. In your opinion, how do you feel that we can combat this kind of growing problem that is kind of not only within music, it's interfering, with everyday lives now as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's a double-sided coin. I think that there is an extremely large issue that needs to be addressed, or at least it needs to have some kind of solution. Obviously, it's an extremely large issue, so trying to find, a solution to such a convoluted thing is, not the easiest thing in the world. And I'm definitely not trying to claim that I have the answer, or anything like that. But
Hmm.
yeah, there needs to be some kind of, answer for. These machines that are training on music that people and bands have put bunch of money, blood, sweat, tears, all human emotion, all of that into, and are not getting compensated for it. Like even large corporations, evil corporations like Spotify, for example, they, even though they pay out their artists shit, they have a solution to, at least in their eyes, compensate the songwriters, compensate the performers, et cetera, et cetera. Now, whether or not that compensation is fair, I don't think it is. Regardless, they have a system in place. These AI companies, there's no system in place to compensate any of the engineers, producers, songwriters, instrumentalists, studio, any and everybody that has put their blood, sweat, and tears into creating the music. There is zero system to compensate those people, and in no other realm of music. So when it comes to broadcasting, when it comes to live performance, when it comes to um um uh airwave broadcasting, so like not TV but like radio, there's always a system in place. DSP streaming, there's always a system in place to at least pay artists. Now, again, I don't think that they get paid fairly. I would say we definitely don't get paid fairly, but there's at least a system in place to address it. And I think with AI, there being no system to address it, and there continuing to not be a system, even if, again, it's an imperfect system, that's better than none. And I think that, yeah, there being no system right now is extremely wrong, extremely ethically bad and wrong. And I think that the AI company, any AI companies or any people that are using machine learning to take from other artists and other bands and not compensate them in any way, shape, or form is a huge problem and something that definitely needs to be fixed and addressed. Um, Now, I feel like there was a second part to the question. I went
Um,
really hard on that first part, but
no, no, no. I totally agree with you. I think the second part of that question is, um, what do you feel, labels, promoters, festivals and stuff like that, even bands themselves, because you also mentioned, a growing problem with, artists being paid fairly for the music that they create, whether it's independent or you're signed to a label. I think that also needs to be a topic of discussion of, creativity being paid fairly for what it is. What do you feel that you can do as an artist, or, like I said, labels, promoters, or, people that do these large festivals? How can we protect ourselves from, this kind of thing when, it's already a creative risk to be able to be a musician or do anything in the arts in general. It's quite another thing when, people are trying to narrow down people's sounds or underpaying people and stuff like that. So, what do you feel is your solution to that?
well, I very much wish I had one. If I had one, I would, yeah, very much have a business and be looking for investors to get that in there. But to be honest, it's been a long occurring issue, and these issues go hand in hand with each other. Artists not being paid fairly by the digital streaming platforms, like that's obviously a huge issue. Another issue is predatory um contracts from record labels to independent bands and artists who very much believe and are being told that they need to have this machine behind them when in reality in 2025 that could be advantageous for a lot of bands and artists, but
Mm,
we are also in the same reality that the record labels have kind of they very much got um had to spin their business models once streaming became the main platform and main use of music discovery and music consumption and whatnot. Obviously, there's still physical CDs and vinyls and stuff like that, which are making come back and whatnot, which is cool to see as a vinyl collector and everything like that. But at the end of the day, um, yeah, I think that obviously, I feel like all artists, all bands, all musicians can agree that we're not getting paid fairly, right?
mhm,
I think that because of one, the transition into the streaming era, the uncertainties of these bigger and also mid-sized record labels having to navigate that, but then also their top priorities being they are a business and they have to get return on investment, and without having a decade of knowing what's going to work and what's not going to work because the music system has the music machine has kind of been a certain way and now it's flipped on its head, that streaming has come along. They don't really have a way to base anything, like they don't have any data to base it off of, so they're kind of navigating this as newly as we are. But I also don't think that in turn that means that they should give out predatory deals and everything like that. Now let me preface this, or not preface, but let me also say that bands and artists very much should be hiring your independent lawyers, not these lawyers that are working with the record labels that know and everything like that. Like, read your contracts, do your due diligence if you are going to sign a contract. It's 2025. There are so many different amazing free resources out there But definitely, before any, if you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into your music, then you definitely need to prioritize the ownership of that music and what makes sense for you as a band and or you as an artist or whoever you may be. So I do think that there is a not burden, but there's a responsibility not just in the hands of the record labels, but there's also a responsibility in the hands of the artists and the bands to make sure that we are not getting allowing ourselves to get put in these bad situations. There's definitely such a thing as precedents, and so if certain bands or whoever have you set precedents to these record labels in this new age of streaming that okay they can offer just as not good of deals and they will and we as independent artists or whatever will take these deals, then that perpetrates rather a system that is going to allow that. I think that a possible solution would be not just like in regards to songwriters and publishers or sorry songwriters and everything like that, producers, because that's a little bit different, but in regards to just straight musicians and bands, artists, whatnot, to have like a union. Now at the end of the day it comes down to the reality that not everybody is going to agree on everything. That's why there's politics, that's why there's wars. We're humans, right? At the end of the day not everyone is going to be able to agree on everything, but I think that we as society, in regards to taking the labels and the music distributors and the DSPs and those companies aside, we as humans can all pretty much agree that real artists are not being paid as much as they should, that the money is there to pay them, and that unlike pretty much every single other facet of art, yeah, we are being vastly underpaid and are in a system that it makes it extremely difficult to be able to to find motion and to know that you're going the right way. A lot of times, again, just kind of getting into the human aspect of it, a lot of times intuition is very, very, very much a large part of, life and music and all of that, right? So, we as humans have to use our intuition and also our empathy and understand and agree that, hey, musicians, unlike every other art department, are completely, vastly underpaid. Other art departments obviously are, underpaid, but the amount and comparatively, yeah, musicians are the most underpaid artists that exist and have been for since the streaming service or since the streaming era rather started. So
Hmm.
I do think that there is a solution. I don't know exactly what the solution is. I think that a union could be a solution, but that also is would be extremely hard to get everyone on board for.
Hmm.
But I do think that there is a solution, and yeah.
Um, I think you raised some very good points and, kind of touching on the technology aspect of this a little bit more, you look at things like, TikTok, Instagram, and stuff like that, where it's very much, you know, um, artists are now having to find different ways to find a deeper narrative of telling stories. It's not just with music, it's with YouTube, it's with TikTok, it's with Instagram. For you, how do you balance that short attention economy that exists within, you know, that hemisphere of things, and how do you dive into, deeper narratives within that?
So in regards to like yeah, storytelling, here's the thing. With all humans, yeah, we have, I mean, some more than others, but we have shorter attention spans. But
Hmm.
if we are looking to be told a story, we are going to take the time to listen to the story. And that's what
Right.
it comes down to.
Of course.
So anybody that is, wanting or that has interest in listening to our music and stuff like that, that is our story. If, deep diving into different things, behind the scenes stuff we put out, like that is our story. We're not trying to force people to, you know, listen to our story, anything like that. But if you want to, we have it out there. We also are not going to, you know, spend our time and efforts that we could be spending on making music, doing ancillary things to get resources to promote our music and stuff like that by doing and trying to satiate people's short attention spans, gimmicky TikTok things, like, and maybe that's why we haven't had much success on some of those platforms. I think it's extremely cool that there are artists and bands that are able to hit that algorithm and find and have audiences find them, then blow up on TikTok, and then they have the leverage when it comes to potentially shopping, albums or records or whatever to record labels, distribution deals, whatever it may be. Um, but yeah, I think that it really just depends on intention and why you're making your music. We are an independent band. We've always been an independent band. Fully. And I personally, just, or sorry, realistically, I know that, we have more people that, and just looking at the data, that listen to our music than like, follow us on socials and stuff like that. It would definitely be nice to have, that the amount of people that listen to our music accurately reflected in our, numbers and stuff like that when it comes to social media. But at the same time, the reality of balance is very key. So at the same time of, yes, we're going to put out content, on these platforms and stuff like that, we're also not going to break our energy, and I guess, like, we will spend time on it again, but it's a thing of balance, right?
Mhm.
So we're not going to break our necks or completely like ruin our mental health just to try to satiate the short attention spans of people so that we maybe might have a chance to blow up on TikTok or something like that. If it happens, cool. Yeah, we're definitely going to put time into making content and stuff like that so people can get like a more behind the scenes look at the story and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think what it really comes down to is, if someone is trying to and someone has the intention of being willing to listen to your story, then
Mhm.
they're going to. And if they're just mindlessly scrolling, then they're just mindlessly scrolling. A lot of people discover music that way. I personally don't. I don't, have any kind of like, I don't say that the people that do that are any worse or less or anything like that. I feel like any way that anybody can discover music is a beautiful thing. But yeah, us personally, we are going to make sure that we focus on being as authentic as possible and not allowing the, metrics of social media to, determine exactly what we are putting our focus, our time, our energetic bandwidth into.
Um, for you, you talked a little bit about success. When you picture yourself, and I know success is different for everybody, and I'm talking outside of social media streams or streaming in general. Um, what for you embodies success, or what does that look like to you beyond, social media and beyond streaming?
Yeah, absolutely. So it goes back into how I was talking about like intention.
Hmm.
So whenever I started this project, I very much, took a step back and had to, do some deep self-reflecting and ask myself, what am I doing this for? Right? And obviously it's to, express myself, but at the end of the day, it's, yeah, it's for me, it's to express myself, and it's to be able to organically and authentically create something that I like.
Hmm.
And that's what it comes down to. I definitely have, once, we started to work with larger artists and get into the algorithm of, the music platforms and whatnot, start to, focus on those things like metrics and, numbers, social media, everything like that. Like that was very much a thing at one point, but I learned through the process, and it definitely was a live and learn type thing, that I can't uh what's the word I learned that I can't risk my mental or energetic bandwidth or health to try to do that just in the name of success, because I didn't start this project to be successful. I started it to be able to have an outlet, to be able to organically express myself, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of times as musicians, especially bands that are existing for years, it sometimes you have to take a step back and realize, like, okay, even though we are reaching whatever some amount of success, whatever have you, um, what is the reason that this was done? What is the like original reason why this music is being made? And for me and for Aim High, it is to create something that is organic and that I like and that we like. Um, and so yeah, it would be super cool to, reach higher levels of success and everything like that. But to, not be long winded, to answer your question, like what long term success looks like for Aim High is to be able to continue to exist and thrive in our original goal of simply making music, being able to express ourselves and being able to do that in a way that organically feels right.
Hmm.
And that is very much the most important, like, yeah, sentiment, yeah, in
Um,
my opinion.
um, for you, since Aim High has, started to where it is now, how do you feel you have grown as an artist, whether that be, whether it's personally or musically? How do you feel you've grown? And is there anything that you feel, challenge wise, was there any big challenges that you have risen above, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, challenge wise, like I mentioned, trying to exist and pop off from a town that originally, at the time that we were doing it, kind of mostly embraced, three to a little bit more genres of music, but ones that we weren't a part of. It was definitely challenging to, be able to break out and make somewhat of a name for ourselves, within our local scene, to be able to work with national and international artists of levels that we might not ever reach, probably won't ever reach, but whatever.
Never say never.
Yeah,
Never say
yeah,
never.
facts, facts. But yeah, no, I mean, we've been blessed to be able to, do a lot of things that I never thought possible. So, like, for example, like, yeah, a lot of the artists that we've worked with were artists and bands that I personally were influenced by and looked up to when I was coming up. So to be able to not just interact with those artists, but like work with them to create music, to do something that I'm passionate about with the people that I look up to, and all of that is, just extremely, I'm extremely blessed to have been able to do it. And that's just like one facet of it. There's been challenges, there's been things like what I just mentioned, which are awesome, feel good payoffs, everything like that. It's not, I guess, as binary as, oh, it's either extremely bad or it's extremely good. There's definitely yeah, spectrum of, just like in life, going through a music project, there will be ups and there will be downs. I personally feel like any journey that doesn't have any obstacles isn't a journey worth uh going through. So yeah, we definitely have, faced some obstacles, not just, in regards to coming up in the scene in the city that, we're in. Um, the unexpected, unfortunate, passing and death of our guitarist Coleman, rest in peace. Um, from that to grieving to putting the band down and having to assess it's whether or not it's something that I even want to continue to do. That was a thing for a while. Picking the band back up after that, pretty much having to, for all intents and purposes, restart from, in regards to like, booking agents, managers, everything like that, like restarts to grow ourselves. Um, yeah, a bunch of challenges, but at the same time, I definitely think that anything in life is an experience, and not every experience is going to be good, not every experience is going to be bad, but I think what's important is taking lessons from those experiences and growing and learning from those lessons. And I think that's what a part also of what life is, not just like being in a band, not just music or whatever, but yeah, a collection of, experiences and learning from whether or not it's your success, learning from your mistakes, all of that. That's, a very critical part of growth. And I am extremely blessed and, yeah, happy and blessed that I've been able to go through this journey, at least so far.
Uh, for you, before we get out of here, this has been a really great conversation. I've enjoyed talking to you about, your band. Um, can we talk about a little bit of the things that are going to be going on for you guys? I know you guys have been, working on a lot of stuff and what can you tell listeners and, even, fans or new fans what you guys are working on right now at this particular time, if you can indulge.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So first off, yeah, this has been a very awesome conversation. I appreciate you, yeah, being able
Awesome. Thank you.
willing to talk to me and everything like that. But yeah, so coming up next, we have an iteration of. Well, first off, we have a single dropping on the 2nd of January in 2026. It's called "Embers to Ashes." There will be an accompanying video. So yeah, y'all can go pre-save that now in our little fan link. It's on our Instagram, everything like that. We're at Aim High 803 everywhere. But yeah, we have a new single coming out, and then after that, we have our next iteration of music, which is an album. It's called Free Caskets. The release date, I am not able to say at this time, but it
Dang it.
is.
I thought ITV was gonna get it first, but I guess we're gonna have to wait and circle around back to it.
Yeah, it is coming out in 2026. I can say that. So it's coming out sometime next year. And until then, we have again our single coming out on the 2nd of January in 2026. So excited for all of those things.
I'm excited for you guys. Honestly, like I said, you guys kind of bring a whole different sound palette to the table. Uh, for as long as you guys have been a band, I think you are making great creative strides, and I'm really looking forward to not only the album in 2026, but what we're looking forward to with the new January single coming out. So, really hoping that you guys reach the levels of success that you deserve, and you do deserve it. Um,
Thank you.
and I can't wait to talk to you guys again about the next chapter in your lives with the 2026 album coming up soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for all of the amazing words. Very, very much appreciated.
Awesome. Thank you so much for even coming on to the show. It means a lot. ITV is had like very much, a band that's trying to negate these different kind of territories. It's been a struggle, but I think when I have a community of artists such as yourselves that are willing to put the time out to give their stories and to support things like this that are very much for the artist, not for anybody else, but solely for the creative talents that are making the music that I love to enjoy. It means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the, reciprocal end of that, thank you for, creating a platform for the artists that, intrinsically care about, the scene and, the bands and artists that are coming up right now. Definitely respect what you're doing. Definitely very admirable. So thank you for your time and thank you for having me and us on here. And yeah, having this conversation is very much appreciated.
So definitely check out Aim High's music. I will be putting all the links in the description down below for all their music and stuff like that. Any ways to, support them in any way you can. And also go to the ITV website where you can listen to this episode and all the other episodes that will be coming up in the future. Thanks, guys, and take care.
Yeah, Into the Void 2026, aim high that way.